WATD presents John Paul, the Car Doctor. All things automotive. Have questions? Call or text 781-837-4900. Now, here's John Paul, the Car Doctor.
Good Sunday morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Car Doctor program on 95.9 WATD. My name's John Paul, the Car Doctor, here to help you with your car problems. Well, we were supposed to have Courtney Hanson joining us to talk about what she has going on. I remember talking to her years back when she came out with a book called The Garage Girl's Guide to Everything You Need to Know About Your Car. Haven't talked to her since. Her PR agency called me or sent a note to me and said she has part 2 of her series, Ride of Your Life, starting up on Hulu, and wanted to know if I wanted to talk to her. I said yes, and a couple of weeks ago, we went back and forth a little bit, picked today. Their PR people said confirmed, and Paul, is Courtney with us?
Not so far.
Not so far. So I'm not sure what happened exactly, but like I do with every guest, usually a week or so before, I send them an email and just say, hey, just confirming that you're good to go for this weekend. Here's the number. Here's who's going to be producing. And didn't hear anything back, which had me a little concerned, but it was kind of a weird email address too. So I'm not sure what happened to Courtney, but maybe she'll still call in. We never know. So we'll talk about some of the emails I got this week, some questions. You can join us at 781-837-4900. We have a car review to talk about, and that's the BMW 2 Series. We'll talk about that after we wrap up a couple of questions here. Also, I was watching, I'm not a big racing fan, but if I happen to know a name in the race, I tend to want to watch it. And yesterday, there were 2 races on Fox. The Craftsman Truck Race and the ARCA race. So sort of the Saturday before the big Sunday NASCAR race is really what it comes down to. And the Craftsman Truck Race, and we've had him on the show before, Dale Quarterly. And Dale's been on the show, and we talked to him, and I know him from a long, long time ago. His father, Herb Quarterly, had a little used car lot in Abington, literally within walking distance from where I used to live. And at the same time, he also had, before that, or maybe even at the same time, had a little go-kart shop called Karting Sales. And both Dale and his brother Dean used to race go-karts, and they were quite competitive, and they'd go down to places like Daytona and race go-karts at over 100 miles an hour in Daytona, which was pretty interesting. But he ran the Craftsman Truck Race yesterday. He started off in like 30th place. The best he did was he probably got up to 26th or 25th. And I'm not sure what happened at the very end, but he didn't finish with like 4 laps to go. It was a pretty interesting race because I think from front to back of the pack, there was probably only a second difference between the leader and the end vehicle. For those who are old TV fans, Malcolm in the Middle, Frankie Muniz, I think is how you pronounce his last name. Paul,
maybe
you ever
Munez?
Yeah, that person. He also races in the Craftsman Truck Series.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He didn't do any better than Dale did at the end, I think. Maybe about the same. He was at the end, but I guess throughout his whole life, always wanted to be a race car driver. So. And I guess if you're formerly on TV, you can afford to be a race car driver.
Yeah, that is pretty interesting. My favorite author when I was a teenager, Terry Goodkind, he was a racer for RAL Racing. So, if you can, if you're popular enough, can afford a truck, you can do it.
I guess so. And Dale's kind of an interesting character because the Craftsman Truck Race Series typically is a bunch of young drivers. I think the youngest driver yesterday was 17. and the oldest driver was 64, which is Dale Quarterly. So the idea that, he's still racing in his 60s is pretty impressive. What's even more impressive is an hour after the race was the ARCA race. So it looks like regular NASCAR cars. And he was in that race. And he ended up, I think, in 7th or 8th place in the ARCA race. So pretty impressive that he did 100 laps and this was at Lime Rock, which is real interesting because Lime Rock's a road course. So when they do NASCAR road courses, I always find it much more interesting than going around in a circle. Not as much passing because it's tight, but I always do find it kind of interesting. And I always thought Dale would do really well there because he used to road race there. He used to race motorcycles there. So he was a motorcycle racer who became a car racer, who became a motorcycle developer, I guess, is a good way. He would help people with different racing techniques, work on their bikes, do stuff like that. Never actually had what you could say is I don't think he ever actually worked for anyone. He's worked for himself for his entire time, and pretty impressive. And yesterday, one of the interesting things that happened, he got in kind of a little bit of a tangle with another driver, and I'm not sure if the driver was trying to get even, but near the end of near the last third of the race, I guess, that same driver tagged him from behind, spun him around. Dale did a 360 in the track, saved the car, got going again, and ended up finishing, I think, in, like I said, 8th or 9th place maybe, but he would have been probably in the top 3 or 4 if that didn't happen. And that spin on the track, really all it did was melt his rear tires off, and so he lost a lot of stickiness in the rear tires, so that slowed him down a little bit. But pretty impressive catch from doing a complete 360 in the track. 2 years ago, he made headlines another time with a crash where he was at the ARCA race at Daytona, and he got hit and spun across the track and went across that. If you've ever watched any of the Daytona races, there's that grass field that says Daytona. And he went sliding across that and tore that all up. So, of course, he made a lot of headlines and with that. So it was pretty interesting. To learn a little bit more about him, Google Dale Quarterly on YouTube. You can find some pretty interesting interviews, including one with a flat track guy from about a year or so ago. And it's sort of... Dale readily admits he has a pretty big ego, and I think it's titled "Do You Know Who I Am?" And it was pretty interesting, and he wanted to learn more about flat track racing, and he went to the better guy there to ask some questions. And I guess it started off a little bit cold at first, but the interview's pretty funny. So if you want to learn a little bit more about him, and it is racing. Racing to me is always fun when either you have your favorite person or you actually know somebody is even better. So I know a few years ago, probably more than a few now, AAA actually sponsored some NASCAR, and it was interesting to watch the drivers and see what was going on. Somebody wrote to me, and they must be my age. They said, when I was young and worked on cars and motorcycles, probably younger than me still, my tools would come from the local Sears store. I actually still have some of those tools and use them routinely. My son's starting to like working on bikes, scooters, and someday cars. What are your thoughts on Harbor Freight tools? Well, I still have Craftsman tools, and apparently some of the older ones from 40 and 50 years ago are actually collectible now, which is hard to believe that a wrench or a screwdriver is collectible, but they are. I had some Irwin, I think they were Irwin screwdrivers. They were wooden handles, solid metal shaft went through the top. Brand new old stock, probably from the 70s. And I'm not even sure where I got them, but they were too pretty to use. They had never been out of the package, still had the plastic on the handles, which dated them to the 70s-ish. And I ended up selling them to somebody who just collects old tools. And I said to him, I'm selling a set of regular screwdrivers and Phillips screwdrivers, brand new in the package, never been used, for the price of what somebody's trying to get one for on eBay. Now, of course, what people ask on eBay and what they get are always two different things. But the screwdriver set, guy really liked it. He drove about 100 miles to come and get it, which sort of surprised me. And he was driving an old Ford F-350 dually diesel. Probably cost him $100 in fuel to get there. But he showed up on time and actually was happy to get them and was surprised how good they were. Anyway, back to, what are your thoughts on Harbor Freight tools? They keep changing. I mean, it used to be they had Pittsburgh. Now they have Quinn and Icon. They all come with a lifetime guarantee against defects. Some of my coworkers used to call their tools single-use tools, and others say they work till they don't. I had to buy a quarter-inch drive socket set for Florida. I didn't bring enough tools with me. There was something I needed to do that had, kind of quarter-inch drive size sockets in it. Didn't have one. Didn't really know my neighbors that well to go ask. So I went to the local Harbor Freight, bought a set. It's actually a nice little set. Can't really say anything bad about it. All the sockets fit the way they should. Nothing falls off the extensions. Came in a nice little blow molded case. It's their cheaper brand. It was their Pittsburgh brand. It was fine. I needed to, when I was working on my wife's Volkswagen in Florida, Volkswagen uses something called triple squares, which sounds kind of just what it sounds like. Take a square, put another square on top of it, sort of diagonal to the other square, put another square on top of that, diagonal to that, and that's a triple square. They can be triple square sockets or triple square drivers. The drivers are sort of like Torx. If you didn't look closely, you'd think maybe it was an Allen wrench, Allen bolt, maybe you thought it was a Torx, but it's actually a triple square. Out in front of where I live in Florida, there's a garage, and occasionally there's a Snap-on truck there. I stopped the Snap-on truck and said, hey, I'm interested in buying a set of triple squares. What do you have? And the guy goes, well, I have a small set here. They're $230. I'm like, ooh, I don't want to spend that much. So at Harbor Freight, I went there, and they had a set for $40. They were sort of a shallow set of sockets or drivers, which actually worked out good because not a lot of room between me and the bottom of the Volkswagen. Did the job just the way they should. I actually used them on my little impact driver. Was able to take everything out I needed to take out, put everything back in the way it was supposed to go back in. So bottom line, I think, Harbor Freight hand tools can be a good value for the price, especially if you're trying to build a basic tool set. And if you watch too much YouTube like I do, there's a lot of channels now, and what they do is they're constantly kind of comparing the Icon line, which is the premium line at Harbor Freight, to stuff like Snap-on and Mac. And in some cases, they're saying they outperform those major brands. The thing about the Snap-on tools is really the tool truck. If you're one of my coworkers lives up in Maine, he has a shop. The Snap-on truck comes in once a week, once every other week, and if he needs something right away, it's right there, so he can go and grab it. And if something breaks or doesn't do its job, he swaps it out and gives them a new one. So it can actually, they both have their advantages. I was always one of those people that there were certain Snap-on tools that I would buy. I liked a couple of their ratchets better than the Craftsman ratchets. Although I have to admit, the old Craftsman ratchets with the push-button release, I like those too. The their flare nut wrenches for doing brake lines and stuff like that, I always thought theirs were way better quality and didn't tend to round off brake lines the way some of the other brands did. And I think I tried everything before I decided Snap-on's the only way to go. Snap-on impact wrench, half-inch drive impact wrench, I had one, never really had good luck with it. It used a ton of air to get it to work and work properly. I found Ingersoll Rand definitely did the job better and cheaper.
You know, speaking of, we have Dawn on the line who's curious about this very topic.
All right, well, let's talk to Dawn then.
Hey, Dawn, you there?
I'm
Dawn,
here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Two things. I have a whole set of the wooden handle screwdrivers because back in the 70s I worked on, I was in the airlines. I'm an airline mechanic, and the Skydrol 500 hydraulic fluid would eat plastic. It would melt in your hand. The plastic.
I bet it would. Yeah.
So,
and let's face it, the wooden handle ones just look good.
Oh yeah, they look cool. I still got them.
Yeah.
Right here.
No, I saved. I think I saved over the years one Phillips that I still use all the time, and it looks good hanging on the tool rack. You know.
The other thing is, many years ago, my son gave me I needed a new drill, and he got me a 1999 a limited edition Milwaukee heavy duty Magnum drill. And I said, that's too pretty to use. I can't use that goddamn thing. It's been in the box ever since.
Well, I had, and I think I finally gave it away, but I had an old, I think they called it a hole shooter or something. It was a single speed Milwaukee drill. I think it probably only turned at about 500 RPM, and it was just a regular 3/8 chuck drill that my father had, who gave it to me. So I probably remember it when I was 6 years old. So however many decades ago that was. But the problem was, if you were drilling through something like a pipe or a piece of steel, if it got caught in it, it would snap your wrist. It was the torquiest thing ever, and it was almost scary. And today everybody goes out and buys cordless tools, and it's odd to go into a repair shop today and actually see someone using air tools. They're all using battery tools now. It's almost like you don't need an air compressor anymore.
Yeah. Well, I was just curious about that. I mean, one thing about the wooden handles, the shafts come all the way through the wooden handle. You can still beat on them with a ball.
Oh yeah. That was one of the things. That's how you could always tell the cheap wooden handle ones from the good wooden handle ones, because the metal shaft came all the way through. And I probably should have saved these Irwin ones and I think it was Irwin. I should have saved them because they were so good looking, but I'm like, I'd rather, they're sitting in a drawer and they're never going to see the light of day. I'd rather, and what I sold them for was almost nothing, but hopefully the person actually either uses them or, I don't know, polishes them or does something with them to make them worth. Hopefully they're just not selling them to make more money, but
bringing them out for parties,
Yeah, there you go. Good idea. All right, thanks, Don. All right, take care. Bye-bye. Our phone number, 781-837-4900, is how you get through and talk to us, 781-837-4900. Why don't we take a quick break? When we come back, we'll talk about the car that got me around this week, and that's the BMW 2 Series. And it's not just a regular 2 Series, it's an M2. And it's not just a M2, it's an M2 Grand Coupe. And we'll let you know about that when we come back. My name's John Paul. This is the Car Doctor program. You're listening on award-winning 95.9 WATD. We'll be right back.
Even car geeks and do-it-yourselfers rely on AAA to give them extra peace of mind on the road. AAA offers 24/7 roadside assistance, whether you're in your own vehicle, a friend's car, or even a rental. Combine that with great rates on insurance, hotel, gas, and dining savings, and discounts on 8,700 brands, and you're covered on and off the road. Get a special membership offer today at AAA.com/join. That's AAA.com/join.
Ever wonder what a 900 square foot ADU looks like? Is it really enough space for comfortable, independent living? Stop wondering and start walking. BuildX, the ADU experts, invite you to tour a real 900 square foot ADU and see it for yourself. Full kitchen, spacious bedrooms, comfortable living area. It's bigger than you think. Walk through our weekly open house and discover what's possible in your own backyard. Visit buildx.com for dates and locations. That's buildwithanx.com.
You let that mountain reach high. You let that river run wide.
Hi, this is Jeff Nealing.
And this is Joe Clapp.
And I'm Stephen Davis.
We're Humble Roots. Tune into Twilight Showcase Radio.
Hosted by Sandy Stride and Keith James.
On 95.9 WATD and 95.9WATD.com.
And of course, visit twilightshowcase.org.
Twilight Showcase, tonight from 8 to 10 on 95.9 WATD. Make an appointment Sunday morning at 11 for John Paul, the Car Doctor, on 95.9 WATD. Now, back to the Car Doctor.
And welcome back to the Car Doctor program. Our phone number is 781-837-4900. Before we talk about the BMW, I guess I have a complaint. I understand our guy Rob was up in the Goodyear blimp this week. And I've always wanted to go up in the Goodyear blimp. And it was courtesy of Sullivan Tire, who really should advertise on this program. But anyway, but I guess Paul Sullivan invited some people up on the Goodyear blimp. An old former Sullivan Tire co-worker of mine, Steve Walsh, was up in the blimp as well. I saw he posted on Facebook. But I've always wanted to do that. And I don't know, it looks like fun. So
what an adventure that must be, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess it's because it's the Goodyear blimp, it's big. It's bigger than like the ones you see over Gillette Stadium, at the insurance blimps and stuff like that.
I guess I'd have to see it closer to really have the perspective, because I've only ever seen them, miles away?
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess it's pretty quiet, where the smaller ones are noisy because of the motors that make them go. But the Goodyear blimp's a little bit bigger and quieter, I guess. But it just looks cool. So, but no, Rob didn't call me up and say, hey, John, did you want to go up on the Goodyear blimp? But it's okay. It's all right. Maybe it was a birthday present. Maybe that's how he did it, because I think it was his birthday within the last couple of weeks.
Not too long ago, yeah.
Yeah. So, anyway. So Goodyear blimp. And the AAA commercial reminded me, with 4th of July coming up, which is this Friday, right? Yeah.
I believe so.
Yeah. There is going to be 72 million people traveling over the 4th of July holiday when I was reading our AAA news release. And, of course, 95% of those people are going to be traveling by car. And it surprises me every year, and maybe it shouldn't, but the number one travel destination is Orlando still. And people are still going down to the, whether it's MGM or Disney for 4th of July, and it's hot. Although it was hot this week, too. And we'll talk about hot weather in a little bit as well. But I want to talk about the car that got me around, which is the 2025 BMW M2 Grand Sport Coupe. And so here's my take on this week's ride, the Grand Sport Coupe. Here's what the internet says. One heck of a machine, a compact beast that turns heads and steals hearts. Well, let's see if that's true. First look, it's definitely low, wide stance, sleek LED headlights. Really good headlights, by the way. I was driving back on kind of a completely unlit, twisty road, and it has auto high beams that you can turn on too. But on low beams, very controlled lighting, not overly wide, so you're not blinding oncoming drivers. Really good headlights. The quad exhaust has a nice rumble to it. It also has its share of, sporty looks, carbon fiber bits and pieces and aluminum and stuff like that. 19-inch multi-spoke wheels with Grand Sport badging. Not your average 2 Series. It's a 4-door. And call me a little old-fashioned, but to me a coupe should be 2 doors. But they call it a coupe because of the roof line looks like a coupe. So if it only had 2 doors, you'd definitely say it's a coupe. But they call it a coupe. I guess I'll have to let that go since it's a European thing, I guess. You know, Mercedes does the same thing. BMW does it, obviously. So slide into the driver's seat. It isn't exactly a luxury race car, but it does have all the top-tier bits. The seats will hold you in place for if your driving gets enthusiastic. The M steering wheel's got paddle shifters. One of them has a plus sign to shift up. The other one says boost. So when you downshift, it gives it a little bit more punch. You can tweak the drive mode, so you can go from kind of economy to casual to sporty. They call, and I haven't been in a BMW in a little while, but they call it iDrive 8.5. It has a massive touchscreen paired with a 12-inch digital dash. It's got Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, real nice stereo system. The controls are typical BMW, which is there's a learning curve required. Everything from the toggle shifter, so there's a little flat toggle thing on the center console, to this odd location of a start button. And buttons, I don't know if button's the right word. But it is a button because you push it. But when I got in it, I was looking at it and going, well, how do you start it? There's no usual red start button, which most cars that don't have a key have some kind of button, round circular thing. This doesn't. It's a rectangular thing. And it's like, oh, okay. Well, now that I've found it, I know how to make it work. It could use more touch. It could use more buttons and less touchscreen. That's my opinion. And, back years ago, BMW came up with iDrive, and it was a toggly, mouse-ish sort of thing you use to toggle around stuff. And I remember being at the New York Auto Show, and the BMW engineers were heralding it, how great it was. And I just put more buttons. It didn't do anything for me. Front seats are good. Rear seat tight. Headroom's a little tight due to the coupe design. It's a driver's car. The trunk is almost 12 cubic feet, fine for a weekend getaway, or in the case that we had it, a trip to Market Basket. Under the hood, you'll find a twin-turbo 2-liter inline that makes about 300 horsepower, 331 foot-pounds of torque. I think you can get a stick shift, but our tester had the 7-speed dual clutch, which can shift way faster than me. How fast? 0 to 60 in 4.7 seconds is what the internet tells me. Top speed, depends where you believe it, 155 to 177. Yeah, not around here. With the adaptive suspension, active differential, grippy tires, it does corner really well. It's got huge brakes. Brakes take up the whole wheel. And it's got xDrive, which improves handling, but with the right winter tires should work out really well. Fuel economy, should you care about such a thing, 24 city, 33 highway. Average is about 27. I'm doing a little bit better. On the road, the Grand Sport's fun. It's got plenty of personality. So what's not to love? Well, a small back seat, fussy tech, all the BMWs, like all BMWs, no spare tire. It's got a tire inflation kit. But if you love driving, the BMW is a great choice. Power handling, overall performance, great sounding exhaust, comfortable sports seats. Safety features include active cruise with braking, traffic jam assistant, lane keeping, heads-up display. Base price $49,500. Options on our car brought it up to $59,100, which includes 3 years, 36,000 miles of free maintenance. The window sticker has some odd listings. One that caught my attention was decoding additional features. And I was like, what the heck does that mean? Apparently, through software, there's some features that are disabled, like maybe watching videos or TV or something. Also, it says refrigerant is included. Huh? Wouldn't it be? And it also says interior camera is included. Why? I'm not sure why. Probably so it can watch you. So that's my take. What do you think? Call in. Let me know. What do you think? Let's talk cars. Let's talk cars with Robert from Kingsborough.
Good morning, John. Long time no speak.
I know. I was actually, as odd as this sounds, don't take this as a weird way, but I was just thinking to myself the other day, I wonder what's going on with Robert and his truck.
Yeah, it's scheduled. I have a summer schedule in church, so it gives me time to listen to you. And
I understand.
Okay, now on the Maverick, tire pressure. Now I start out at 36 psi, all four. This time of year.
Yep.
It'll go up to 37 as things get warm.
Yep.
But when it gets really warm, the front tires will gain 1 or even 2 pounds more than the rear. Now, I've got two theories. I just want to hear yours. One has to do with the brakes working more in the front, heating it up, or the turbocharged engine in a confined space. What's your thought on that?
None of them?
No? Okay.
No. I think what it really is because tires heat up. Yeah, they heat up because of the sun and air temperature and all that stuff. But they also heat up because the molecules of air move around, and when they move around, they cause friction, and the friction causes heat. So because the front tires are doing the steering, and even just little minor corrections are enough to cause the sidewalls to flex a little bit, the molecules to bounce around, generate a little bit of heat, and that's why they go up a little bit. Here's kind of a funny thing. If you put less air in the tires, say you put 25 pounds of air in the tires, and you drove around and you were fairly aggressive when you were driving, and on a hot day, those tires might have 45 pounds of air in when you're done, because there's more room for the sidewalls to flex, there's more room for the molecules of air to move around, more heat gets generated. So really what it comes down to is how the tire flexes and what happens, and that's why properly inflated tires don't tend to grow air pressure like low-pressure tires do.
Yeah. I think I found another reason, the high-speed cornering.
Well, there you go, right there. So, it's one of those things that. That's why it's important. A lot of people sort of forget about tire pressure, when it gets warm out. But it's as important to check your tires. And and somebody emailed me just this week and said the same story. They were like, "Well, my tires gain a few pounds. Should I let the air out?" And I'm like, "Nope. You always should just always check the tires while they're cool in the morning." Most of the tire pressure monitor systems do a pretty good job, but I still like to use an old-fashioned gauge and just check them, go around once a month and check them just before you really start to drive and just see how they're doing.
Yeah, I do keep the monitors up all the time.
Yeah.
And they're probably within a half a pound.
Yeah. No, they're pretty accurate. I noticed in my return trip from Florida, I would glance at the monitors on the car just to see, did anything, after 500 miles of driving, what's, in 85, 90 degree heat, what's happening to tire pressure, and not a whole lot, up a pound or two, never, I started with, I think my car is supposed to have like 34 and 33 or something, and I put a little bit more in because we had a little bit of weight in the back, and I wasn't up anywhere near the max. I think I was maybe 36 pounds or something, and still in that 500-mile drive the first day in 90 degree heat, maybe I had 37 pounds. So but if I started with like 25 or 30, probably would have had 44 or 45 pounds. So
I've had that a couple of times, and it was 43, 44 in the front on a long trip. But I usually want to go 1 or 2 pounds more than cold inflation recommendation. But because of my driving style.
Yeah, I mean, and that a lot of people do that, and there's you have to remember that the tire inflation pressure is what the manufacturer recommends, and it's a little bit of a compromise because they're trying to balance tire life, handling, and fuel economy.
Yes.
So, the manufacturers would probably like to say, put 20 pounds of air in the tires so it rides nice and soft. But then, the people that want handling go, well, you let the air out of the tires, it's going to get squishy and it's not going to handle as well. And then, you put 20 pounds of air in the tires, your fuel economy is going to go down like 4 miles to the gallon. So their recommendations are always a little bit of a compromise.
For sure. Yeah, everything is. I mean, the tires that come with the car brand new are for low resistance to rolling and mileage and all that, and comfort.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing. With an all-season tire, which almost everybody has, they're kind of a compromise too, because they have to do okay in the summer, they have to do okay in the winter, they have to do okay with a little bit of snow, and the same all-season tire you buy in your hometown is the same all-season tire you buy in Phoenix, Arizona. So, if it's really an all-season tire, we got two different all seasons. The season's way different in Phoenix than it is in Massachusetts. So,
for sure.
Yeah. So it's like, well, shouldn't they be a different tire? Well, they're not, because they're kind of a compromise, and they're doing the same thing.
Yeah. Well, it's always good talking to you. And thanks for your information.
All right.
Talk to you soon, John.
All right. Take care, Robert. Thank you. Our phone number is 781-837-4900. If you want to call in and talk about cars, you want to talk about lack of buttons, whatever's on your mind about cars. This is, I guess, sort of a thing. I got something called the LACORSA Grand Prix game in the mail the other day. And it says on the box, a beautiful and fun game, whether you're a fan of racing or not. Highly recommend, whoever said that. It's kind of a little board game, and by little board, it's little teeny board. It's probably like 2 inches wide and 8 inches long. It unfolds, so you have this little track sort of thing. It comes with a bunch of cards. Everybody gets 13 cards. Some cards have special powers, I guess, if you want to say, where you can extend your car up one block on the track. You can add. There's another card where you can add 2 points. So if you draw your highest card is a 10, you can use one of these other cards and it becomes a 12. And you can, in theory, pass the car in front of you.
That sounds really engaging.
Well, if I ever see you, Paul, I'll give it to you.
I'll keep that in mind. Thanks.
Because I didn't get it. I tried it. I sat there, I read the directions, and then I actually went on YouTube last night, and I watched some YouTube videos of people playing it and saying how much fun it was. And I'm like, I just don't get it. It's just doesn't seem fun.
That's the thing about watching people play a game, though, because it can be really fun in your head, but if you watch someone watch it, it's like, wow, that is a really slow-paced game.
Yeah, and they claim that you can. I will say, one of the things I will say about it is a very premium looking game. The box is very nice. It comes with a checklist of championship tables, so you can run multiple laps, sort of thing. It comes with 6 little cars. The cards are kind of a linen feel, so they actually have really good quality to them. The little wooden board track is very nicely done, and it folds all up, so it could be something you could take to the beach. It's packaged really, if you're somebody who does like unboxing videos, it was packaged really well. The deck of cards was sealed like a deck of cards that, in a Las Vegas casino. But yeah, Paul, this might have your name on it, because I tried it and I said to my wife, "You want to play it?" And she looks at it and goes, "No, that doesn't look like fun at all." And then when I watched the video, and people were playing it on the video, and I'm like, I just don't get it. But this might have your name on it. If I ever get up to the station, I'll leave it for you. How's that?
That sounds good to me.
Yeah. All right. It'll keep you out of trouble. And you can play with up to, I think it said you can play with up to 6 people. So, I don't know. It's a little small. I have to say, it's a little small game. It comes in a little, probably a 4 by 10 inch box. Like I said, it's very nicely. It has a very nice look to it. Love the way it was packaged. The little plastic cars are cute. And it actually even has a separate set of cards that you can use if you don't want to use the board, I guess. I didn't quite understand. That wasn't in the directions. In the directions, there was also a set of cards that were the directions as well as a direction book. And it never said anywhere, or else my speed reading skipped right over it. I'm like, what are these extra cards for? I don't get it. But I don't know. Well, and it is, the F1 race is coming out, which has been all over video right now. So I don't know, maybe. Somebody wrote to me this week, and this is a standard question, it seems like now. Here's an interesting set of circumstances. My wife has a 2019 Honda HR-V with about 17,000 miles. I have a Cadillac CT-5 with about 18,000 miles. Both cars are due for state inspection. We went to the Honda dealer. She specified an oil and filter change along with an inspection. Not long after we dropped it off, we were told, you really need to change the brake fluid. It was dirty and should be changed. We responded that we would pass. We picked up the car a little while longer, told them the fluid was changed a little more than a year ago when the car was in Florida. The service person told us that Honda does not share maintenance records on vehicles from one dealer to another. Our Cadillac was also in for service at the dealer, and the service advisor said the fluid was contaminated with water. I've been driving for a long time and have never encountered this issue before. Your thoughts? Well, brake fluid, and Ken, we'll get to you in just a minute. Brake fluid is hygroscopic, which is a big word that means it attracts moisture. Some manufacturers recommend changing brake fluid every 3 years. Others don't mention it. Here's a weird example. Lexus has a recommendation on the ES330 that the brake fluid should be changed every 30,000 miles. But not on the Toyota Camry, which basically uses exactly the same brake parts. So why not on the Camry, but yes on the Lexus? At AAA, we did some testing and found that brake fluid really, after 3, 4, 5 years, it makes sense to change it. I like to do it if you're doing brakes. Why not do it then? Do it all at the same time. Brake fluid can be tested with an inexpensive tester. It looks for moisture contamination. You stick it in the fluid, dip it, and it tells you if there's moisture in there. If the dealer tech actually used a tester or test strips, then the fluid needs to be changed. But I found some dealers of certain vehicle years, 3 years or older, just sort of recommend it. Oh, change the brake fluid. Sometimes it's preventative maintenance. Sometimes it's an income generator. I think all of a sudden it's become trendy. But changing brake fluid makes, in Europe, during the MOT inspection, I think they call it in Europe, they actually test the brake fluid. So, but we're not driving on the Autobahn at 150 miles an hour. But contaminated brake fluid with moisture in it can cause internal rust to the brake system, really bad for anti-lock brake systems. I do an old trick from, if you've been around as long as I have, there was a guy, Brad Sears. And Brad Sears had, Last Chance Garage on Channel 2, and he had radio shows. But we were talking one day, and we were talking about brake fluid. And even way back then, how important it was to change it. And he said what he did when he was doing maintenance on vehicles, he would suck out the brake fluid out of the master cylinder and add fresh brake fluid. And the idea was that you were changing it a little bit at a time because the brake fluid in the master cylinder, as you step on the brake pedal, squirts around inside there. So some of the dirty fluid comes up, some of the fresh fluid goes in. So you're changing it a little bit at a time. His suggestion was every time you change the oil, suck out, a turkey baster or two full of brake fluid. Not enough so you get to the bottom of the master cylinder, but enough so you get down to, partway down, fill it back up with fresh brake fluid, and you have essentially clean brake fluid. Not as good as flushing it, but pretty good. Let's talk to Ken from Topsfield. Ken?
Good morning to you, John Paul.
Good morning.
Great idea on doing that turkey-based stuff. I did that I heard you mention it a few months ago, and I did it on the car, and that's just a great...
Just don't use the same turkey baster for the turkey.
Good point. Good point. Had the car inspected. This is an 01 Z3 BMW, and they look for things to do after they give you the inspection.
Yeah, sort of.
Yeah, and nothing wrong with that. But he said there was 2 millimeters left on the front brakes, and I don't know much about millimeters, but it doesn't sound like a lot.
Yeah, millimeters isn't a lot. It's a little bit.
I gotta get that done because then I won't do any, hopefully, damage to either the rotors or something else. So I was going to do it myself.
Okay.
And I think I can.
Okay.
And a friend would help me.
Okay.
My question to you, for calling, is there a difference in the quality of brake pads? In other words, if I go to Napa, and I think they make more than one type, they make probably deluxe and regular.
Yeah.
And if I went to the BMW place and paid more but got official BMW pads, does it matter? Is some things like you talk about tools, some tools are better? What about brake pads? And I'll just listen.
Yeah, no, there are all kinds of different brake pads, different kinds, different types. My favorite for European cars is a brake pad called Textar, Textar. I think they do a really good job. There's another brand which, frankly, I never heard of till about 5 years ago, called Akebono, Akebono. I think they're a good quality pad, too. Between the Textar for European, Akebono for everything else, I just, this past fall, I decided to do the brakes on the car that I drive back and forth to Florida. Didn't really need brakes, but I figured by the time it came back, I probably would. So I did them before I went down, and I used Power Stop brake components. And I've found they're pretty good. I'm pretty happy with them. But the first choice is always the factory pad, and it always makes sense to check the price because sometimes the factory brake pads are fairly economical. You look at them, you go, well, let's see, a good aftermarket pad from Napa might be $75 or $80, but I go to the BMW dealer and it's, $90. So why don't I buy the BMW factory ones? I was happy with them when they were in the car, so why don't I do them again? But if you're going to go aftermarket on a European car, and it's funny, my old boss who retired a couple of years ago has a BMW 3 Series, and he said, what kind of brake pads would you use? And I said, Textar. And he goes, what do you think it's going to cost to do pads and rotors at my local shop? I said, pads, rotors, labor, you're probably looking at $650. And he texted me back. He said, yeah, that's the kind of pads they're using, and $630. I said, okay, well, I was off $20, So, but, doing brakes yourself, go ahead and give it a try, especially if you got a helper to do it. But like I said, if you're gonna try them, at least price out the brake pads from the dealer, and then check with your local auto parts store and see about Textar or Akebono. The Akebono ones, I think they call them Euro something. But try those two and see what you think. The difference between cheap brake pads and good brake pads is how sometimes the friction material is attached, and sometimes it's just glued on. Other times it has little metal tabs, and the friction material is made into the tab. And some cheap brake pads, I remember, now this was a lifetime ago. There was a local place where I could buy, on a front-wheel drive, like typical GM car, I could buy a set of brake rotors and a set of brake pads for $20. Right. 2 brake rotors and a set of brake pads. Now, how were they? Well, they weren't great, but could you get a couple of years out of them? Yeah, and that's where all the used car dealers went, because they could say, well, this has got brand new brakes on it, brand new brakes and rotors. And all they spent was $20 or $25 on parts, and you'd end up with something brand new. Were those brakes squeaky? Probably. Were they going to last as long? No. But like I said, if I was going to pick something, if you said to me, what's the best brake pad for my BMW, I would probably say Textar. Try those, and then see what you can find. Okay?
All right. Thanks a lot, sir.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye. Our phone number again, 781-837-4900. Paul, your choice. Go to Tom or take a break?
Let's take a quick break, and then we'll get it back to Tom.
All right, good enough. Let's take that quick break. My name's John Paul. This is the Car Doctor program. You're listening on 95.9 WATD. We'll be right back.
Stephen Caridianis here, conductor of the Plymouth Philharmonic. Join us for a free Independence Day concert on the Plymouth waterfront. This concert features exciting extremes. We'll defy gravity with music from Wicked, then go down to the depths with the theme to Jaws. We'll also perform Movin' Out, a medley of hit songs by Billy Joel. Rounding out the program is Tchaikovsky's iconic 1812 Overture and excerpts from the Declaration of Independence read by Sue Giovanetti from the Plymouth Area Coalition for the Homeless, accompanied by the orchestra. That's Friday night, July 4th at 7:30, across from Coles Hill on the Plymouth waterfront. A gift to the community by the Ruffini Charitable Trust, with additional support from the James Spooner Trust and the Town of Plymouth Promotions Fund. If you can't get to the Plymouth waterfront on the evening of July 4th, don't worry. You can hear the concert broadcast live right here on 95.9 WATD.
Even car geeks and do-it-yourselfers rely on AAA to give them extra peace of mind on the road. AAA offers 24/7 roadside assistance, whether you're in your own vehicle, a friend's car, or even a rental. Combine that with great rates on insurance, hotel, gas, and dining savings, and discounts on 8,700 brands, and you're covered on and off the road. Get a special membership offer today at AAA.com/join. That's AAA.com/join.
Hey there, folks. It's Quinn Kelly reminding you to tune in Sunday night at 5 for the South Shore's first voice in sports talk radio, The Sports Exchange. Unmatched coverage of local high school action, as well as a relatable voice on all things Boston Pro Sports. We've got you covered live at 5 every Sunday night. Have a question for our host, missed last week's show, or just want to share a great sports story? You can find us on Twitter at SE on WATD. But remember, mark your calendar, folks, and we'll see you Sunday night at 5 for the Sports Exchange on 95.9 WATD.
Make an appointment Sunday morning at 11 for John Paul, the Car Doctor, on 95.9 WATD. Now, back to the Car Doctor.
And welcome back to the Car Doctor program on 95.9 WATD. Let's talk to Tom in Weymouth, who's been waiting patiently on hold.
Hi, John. Did I hear that New Hampshire's doing away with their inspection sticker? Did you hear anything on that?
I heard something about that too, but I haven't heard it confirmed by, and inspection in New Hampshire is kind of by county. If you live in, Manchester area, you get your car inspected, but if you live up in the middle of nowhere, you don't get your car inspected. So, and it's kind of funny, New Hampshire was one of those places that you couldn't have rust holes in your car. So, there was more Bondo and spray foam being sold in New Hampshire than I think any place else. Because it's kind of funny how people patch stuff now. They knock all the rust out of a hole, spray it full of spray foam, cut it down, and then smear a little bit of Bondo over it and paint it. And it's like, oh look, it looks good as new. That's
and does that bring in any revenue? Do stickers bring in any revenue for the state or county or whatever?
I mean, for instance, in Massachusetts, a sticker's $35, and I think, I'm guessing, I think the shop gets $25 and the state gets $10. Something like that. There's somewhere in there, and the shops will tell you we haven't gotten a raise in 20 years. But yet, there's a waiting list of people who want to be inspection stations. So there's certainly money to be made in doing inspection. And there's even places that all they do is inspections. They don't even do repairs. So I know the little local shop, a little AAA approved shop up the street from here, it's a full-service repair shop, but I bet he does, every time I go in there for a sticker, there's somebody else getting a sticker. So it's pretty steady business. And, if they find a bad tie rod end or ball joint or headlight out or wiper blades, a lot of little extra revenue comes into the shop. But, I think the state gets $10 or $12 per sticker. And you got to figure in Massachusetts, there's 5 million cars. I don't know, there's a bunch. So,
yeah, you're right. I don't think I've ever gone to an inspection sticker, gas station or anything without a car being ahead of you. I do remember, though, I did work in a repair shop when I was 16, 17 years old in Boston, South Boston, and we had lines and lines of cars. I think changing it to this new system with the every day is just a great system compared to that one or 2 days or something. And you remember the lines out the doors to get a sticker?
Oh yeah, and and you also have to remember, back then. I think I remember the first inspection sticker I ever got was $2.
Oh yes, yeah. 2, 3. I remember 3,
Yeah.
2. I think I do. Yeah.
Yeah. According to the interwebs, inspection stations receive $23.50 of the $35 fee. So whatever that is, 10, 11, 12.50 goes back to $11.50 goes back to the state.
Yeah. Okay. So they're making something. I figured they would.
Yeah.
Okay. That was all. I was just
all right.
Their theory, I think I heard something, and their theory was, well, if somebody has something broken, they're going to have to fix it. Well, I don't know about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is sort of a weird thing going on because I saw studies. Now, this was years ago, and it looked at states that did thorough vehicle inspections like New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island, I guess. Rhode Island, not so much because it's every other year. But, did work vehicle crashes because of faulty equipment up in compared to like Florida, which doesn't have state inspection at all. And the answer is no, not really. It's about the same. Yeah. So, in Florida, there's a bunch of missing catalytic converters and jacked up vehicles, which do get pulled over by the police if they're too obnoxious. But yeah, no, that's the case.
Yeah. All right, John, thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Tom. Take care. Well, that music means we need to go. Coming up next week, we are talking to our buddy from Bosch Equipment again about, does your car smell funny? Do you have weird smells in your car? Well, we'll find out what they all mean. And also, 4th of July, be very careful out there when you're out there because of all the other people on the road. I want to thank Paul for filling in for Jesse this week. Thank you, Paul. And until next week,
it's been a pleasure.
Make sure you wear your seatbelt, drive safely, be good to your car. And if you see an emergency vehicle by the side of the road, slow down or move over. It saves lives. Talk to you all next week. Bye-bye.